Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh, and hello to all of you. This is the lecture for chapter 11, retirement planning issues in entrepreneurs and small businesses. And in this video, we're going to look at the types of business organization and their characteristics, financial obligations of business owners, consequences of death, disability and retirement of the business owners in the case of sole proprietorship, partnership, as well as the importance of settling debts before disposal or before the retirement of the owner, as well as common vehicles used by owners in asset accumulation in the preparation of retirement planning. As an introduction, for Asian business owners, there's some lack of a bad mentality among business owners in Asian countries, where we tend not to make a preparation about retirement, and during the timing where the business is actually running well and make lots of profits, they are not making a preparation for the purpose of retirement. So sometimes they spend the money for the luxury stuff, they bought expensive cars, they bought expensive house, but at the end of the day, or they use it for entertainment, but once they reach retirement, the asset that they have are not able to cover for their expenses. So that's why we can see that lots of small businesses or sole proprietorship organization or business, at the end of the day, once the owner wants to retire, it seems that the business are not sustainable, and they have to close the business due to the old age, due to diseases, for example, due to disability, and the business are not able to survive, and it has been left without any direction. So this is one of the issues that has been faced by the sole organization or sole proprietorship organization. Because if you work in a company, you have to contribute to the EPF. But as for sole proprietorship, you don't have any obligation to do so. Therefore, the awareness for you to keep the money in a proper way for the purpose of retirement is important. Otherwise, people will put it aside as if that it is not important, and because they are having a business, they tend to show off that they are rich, they are doing well in the business, without thinking about the future or what will happen eventually once they retire. If we look at the types of business organization, there are three types of business organization: sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. I think you already heard about all these things before. This is not something new for you. If we look at the sole proprietorship organization, normally it is small in size, and owner act as a decision maker in the organization. And for sole proprietorship, it is hard to raise funds because this is a small business, and it is also hard to get credit facilities, and normally the owner of the organization have to use their own resources in order to develop the business. It is also a fragile business in the sense that in the case of death of the owner, it might lead to the closure of the business. And owners and business are not separate entities, okay, in the sense that in the case of death or in the case of business fail, then the individual or the owner personal asset will be used to cover the debt or the liability. The second types of business is what we call as partnership. Partnership means there must be more than one, two or more person in the organization. Partnership we can divide into two categories. The first one is professional. It is where there are a bunch of qualified professionals. For example, in audit firms, okay, or in legal firms, in law firms. So there are a bunch of lawyers that run the partnership business there. Or it can be in the case of commercial partnership, then the situation might be different, where in the case of the death of a partner, the heirs of the deceased can replace the business or the partnership in the business. Nevertheless, for professional, because it's restricted to the qualified professional, therefore if one of the partner stop with the business, then their heirs or the children are not able to run the business again if they don't have similar qualification as the original partner. So as for partnership business, it's not a separate legal entity where the personal asset need to be sacrificed in the case of dissolution of the business, which means the proportion of the debt or liabilities need to be shared with other partners or how many partners they have in that particular business. The operation of partnership business will also affect it when there is a death, in the case of disability or voluntary retirement of the partner. Therefore, a proper plan is needed to overcome this situation. The third category of business is what we call as corporate or company. And this company business or corporate business is ruled under Companies Act. In this type of business, it is what we call it as a separate legal entity, where in this case, the personal asset of the owners of the company will not be used to cover the debt or the liability of the company. The company itself has a right to sue others and also can be sued by others outside of the organization. In a company, the shareholders are the owners of the company, and the shareholders has a right and power to make decision on something. For example, they can remove the CEO. If the CEO is underperformed, they can elect the new board of directors member. For example, they have right to transfer to transfer the shares. They have right to inspect the books and records of the company. This is a part of the rights of the shareholders, as well as the right to share in the residual assets. If the company has been dissolution, I mean that if the company, or in the case of company liquidation, where the asset will be sold to cover the liability, the residual or the remaining of the asset will be divided to the shareholders based on the proportion. In the case of liquidation or dissolution of the organization, the shareholders' personal assets are protected and not going to be used to cover the liabilities. This is where the separate legal entity is applied. One of the main issues in the sole proprietorship business as well as the partnership business is about the retention of business interests in the family, which means if certain situation happen, especially in the case of death, especially in the case of disability of the business owner, or the situation where he wants to retire, these three situations will give a huge impact towards the operation of the business. So in the case of death of the business owners, for the sole proprietorship business, what action can be taken? First, we can actually sell the business to outside parties who are interested to continue running the business. Or in the case we want to retain the business in the company, it needs to be replaced by other family members who are also employed in the business, which means he must be someone who already have experience in running that particular business. Possibly, he is possibly the children, of the owner of the sole proprietorship business, which are already familiar with the types of daily operation, stocks, how to sell, the pricing method, the marketing method, etc., etc. So, in that particular case, they can retain the business in a company if there is someone who can replace his place, possibly family members, close family members that have experience in running the business. In order to prepare for the death of the business owner, we can see that business of the sole proprietorship in Malaysia or in Singapore, they tend to pass down the business to the next generation and to the next other generation. So from grandfather to children's and then to grandchildren's, and they pass this as a part of hereditary in the family. Now we look at what if there is something bad happen to the business owners in the case of disability of the business owners, because this might happen due to accident or some other unintended situation. So what if the owner suffer from disability? Therefore, in order to plan for these things, the owner must have a plan on how to improve his RRS, retirement resource status. Okay, because disability might reduce or completely destroy the business ability to generate income. Therefore, as a part of this preparation, when the business is doing well, when the business is doing good, it is very important for the owner of the business to make a saving, to make a preparation for the unintended sequences or unintended impact like this. Let's say if the business owner of a sole proprietorship don't have any issues with death, don't have any issues with disability, but once they reach an old age, he thinks that he wants to retire. Of course, he needs to retire one day, and he is not be able to run the business till, like he is possibly like 80 or 90 years old. He still can help to monitor the business, but of course, it is one of the important things is where he need to pass the knowledge to the future generation that can actually run the business. Therefore, in this case where he plans to retire, the business owner need to plan when he wants to retire. He need to identify the resources, the retirement gap, and how to fulfill the retirement gap. Besides thinking about the resources for the purpose of retirement, one of the most important things for the sole proprietorship business to consider is to settle the liabilities before retirement. This is because it is not good to pass the sole proprietorship business together with the debt, huge debt, to the next generation. And no one actually want to run the business, want to take over the business if it is heavily in debt. Therefore, the owner of the business have to plan on how they can get the liabilities settled. One way to settle the sole proprietorship liability is to transform the business into a company. Nevertheless, this is not an easy way because small business normally they have to undergo certain processes in order to be listed or to be registered as a company. In the case of partnership, let's say one of the member wants to retire, then other partner may buy the portion of the partner who wants to retire. Now we are going to look at the common approaches on accumulation of retirement funds by the business owners, how they can accumulate retirement fund for the preparation of retirement. They can invest in real estate. They can buy factories or commercial shop lots, residential area, residential house, for example. This is also can be used as a mean to accumulate the resources for the purpose of retirement. They can also buy shares in blue chip companies. They can keep the money in the fixed deposit. And they can also buy asset in the name of spouse or children, because in the case of sole proprietorship, given that the concept of it is not a separate entity, where if the business have debt, then the personal asset of the owner will be used to cover the debt. Therefore, it's a part of the tactics used that has been commonly used, where once the owner buy the asset, they will buy the asset in the name of the spouse or in the names of the children. Other than that, They can also buy life insurance policies for accumulation of retirement fund. Okay, this is where life insurance policies will offer the cash value in the case if you didn't make any claim from the insurance policies, or certain insurance policies has a connection to investment link, or what we call as investment link insurance, for example. Beside that, the owner of the business can also contribute to EPF. We are now reaching the last part of the lecture, where we are going to look at other pre-retirement consideration. It is very important for the sole proprietor to take note that during active years in generating income, the business owner have to make saving for the need of the family, for the purpose of the retirement. Therefore, they should not spend the money freely. Besides that, they also have to be extra careful with the investment in the business. If invest too much, then the cash held by the business owners will be reduced. For example, let's say this sole proprietorship of business, they have one shop lot, okay, that sell groceries. So if they think that they want to invest in another shop lot, let's say they open another 4 or 5 shop lots selling groceries, and if, for example, the new investment not making profits, then they will surely be getting lots of loss, and they will lose their cash as well. So it is not easy to make a new investment because the money that they have also is limited. Therefore, it is very important for them to be extra careful when they want to make a decision whether they want to invest in the new investment. Besides that, the salary of the staff might also affect the cash of the owners, because if they have lots of staff, then the staff salaries is expected to increase from time to time, and it will also affect the cash flow of the business, especially if the business is not doing well. Another thing that they have to consider is to find suitable candidates. For example, they have to identify children that can be groomed for as a successor of the business. They have to teach the children to be able to run the business operation and plan how to pass the business to the successor gradually, and monitoring the business and grooming the child. This is actually very important to make sure that the business can sustain over generation. That's all for this lecture. Assalamualaikum and bye-bye.